And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 392 of the All Dolphins podcast, the live post-game recap of the Dolphins. And Ken's face says it all. Disheartening, disappointing, deflating 28-27 loss against the Arizona Cardinals on the day Tua came back in the offense. Actually looked like an NFL offense for the first time in a while. And then it was the defense's turn to completely collapse. Although one can make the argument that the turning point of the game wasn't maybe not the biggest play of the game. The turning point of the game was that safety when the Dolphins were up 20-10, had the ball back, were in control, and then boom, you give them two freebies and put them back in the game. So I'm guessing, sorry, Ken, to interrupt, but I'm guessing here I'm joined by ESPN radio talk show host Ken LaVicka, and I'm guessing today we might be seeing livid LaVicka Loca.
Yeah, this one's weird. So it felt like the Dolphins, through vast portions of this one, played well enough to win. Last week, after that just listless defeat, we talked about when Tua comes back, you can put yourself in a position to get into the postseason because Tua's going to account for 24, 25, 26 points merely by the fact that he can run this offense, right? What happened today? 27 points on the board, but it was the defense in the second half who allowed points in all but one possession of the second half that let this slip away. You're right. The safety did not help, and the Dolphins certainly hurt themselves, but the next time they got the ball, what did they do? They marched down the field, and they put points on the board again, so they tried to atone for it. I mean, Poop, the secondary play was atrocious today. It was absolutely dreadful, and for the love of God, was somebody ever going to take the correct angle on Kyler Murray in the backfield? I understand he's slippery, but come on. How many times did Shop Robinson run right at him and Kyler Murray easily sidesteps him? Yeah, you flush him out of the pocket, but Kyler Murray's just as dangerous outside the pocket. There were so many missed opportunities for minus plays on the Dolphins' defensive end today, and this one still felt in hand. You felt okay, but the defense allowed long, big-time possessions from the Cardinals, and they cashed in, and that's how you lose that game. When they got the ball back after a puzzling series of play calls, after the review that went the Dolphins' way, you run up the middle for nothing. Julian Hill, who did the one good thing today, catching a pass for 1 yard, and then on 3rd and 9, you're throwing to the flat for Devon Achane.
Let me stop you right there, because I wrote about this. I did in my instant takeaways. Let me stop you right there, and
you're good.
I was scolded for interrupting, but because what I saw on that last drive before they punted is on 2nd and 3rd down, the Cardinals brought the house.
Yep.
And Tua's pass to Julian Hill, I don't think that was the first read. It was basically, oh crap, I got somebody in my face. I need to get rid of it. And then on 3rd down was the same deal. There was somebody in his face like immediately. So I did want to.
But the point remains, like there's no way that was going to go for a first down. Like that's and if you have all of that coming your way, earlier in the game they had done something similar where Tua throws it over the top, over the tackle. Here you've got Achane spread out to the perimeter on that far side. Run something like that. Set up a bubble screen from that scenario. That was just get rid of the ball. Please, Achane, go make some people miss. And then you give the ball right back. And it was a mere formality at that point that the Cardinals were going to drive the field. The Dolphins defense offered very little resistance. And then you've got what really destroyed the Dolphins where they lost the game was the conversion from Kyler Murray on 3rd down where he shimmies. May just whiffs at him. Just a horrific attempt at a tackle there. Gets the first down, and then the Cardinals are able to tick down the clock. There's your field goal.
Yeah, and this is the part is I've seen Kyler Murray play a few times, and like at some point you got to go. I mean, Tua was very efficient. Was very good in his return. Kyler Murray played a hell of a game.
Yeah.
And he made a couple of big boy throws to Marvin Harrison, who, by the way, had not been great for the Cardinals. And then you saw today why he was the 4th overall pick. Because the one that was reversed near the sideline was a hell of a catch. And then there was one shortly thereafter on the final drive over the middle.
Right.
in traffic. And by the way, I'm going to point out that's the kind of throw we've seen Dolphin receivers drop regularly because they're concerned about the big hit that's coming.
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison was in a ton of traffic. Like, no worries, hit me, I'm going to catch it anyway. So those two guys, and we should point out, and you know me and listeners of the All Dolphins podcast, and by the way, thanks everyone for joining us. Much appreciated. Heart for the love. I'm not big on making excuses. We do need to point out the Dolphins played this game without cornerback Kader Cole, who's their nickel guy. They did play without Storm Duck, who's a backup cornerback. That's fine. But then they also lost Javon Holland to an injury in the second quarter. That didn't help because then that put Marcus May and Jordan Poyer on the field at all times. You mentioned it badly by Marcus May. Jordan Poyer got smoked by Trey McBride on the last drive.
I'm Jordan Poyer every single time that we have seen him involved in a play this season. I know that you bring him in for veteran leadership, but what you're getting is veteran step slow every time as well. I mean, his coverage abilities are suffering. This is not obviously the Jordan Poyer of 3-4 years ago. Can he still ball hawk? Sure. But in coverage, if you give the quarterback enough time to sit in the pocket, you are going to pick a secondary that relies on Jordan Poyer apart. He looks really slow, and when Javon Holland's not in the game, he becomes a major detriment on the back end. And you're right, the injuries pile up, but Poop, and I know you said I'm not using it as an excuse, so I'm gonna use that little crack of the door that you created there, and I'm gonna kick it open. I'm sick and damn tired of the injury excuse. I'm sick of it. I don't care if it's Tua. I don't care if it's Achane. I don't care if it's Mostert. I don't care if it's any collection of tight ends. And I sure as hell don't care if it's the defense. Every other freaking team in this league. Like, listen, Jordan Love is hurt. Guess who's going to come in and play well for the Packers because he's done it already? Malik Willis. Every time there's someone out, oh, well, Storm Duck was in there. Oh, well, Marcus May was in there. I'm tired of it. Mike McCarthy's the only coach. Mike McDaniel. Well, Mike McCarthy too, I guess. But Mike McDaniel appears to be one of the few coaches in the league that cannot maximize the depth. And I don't know if that's ultimately on Chris Greer for screwing that up or Mike McDaniel, because once the depth collapses, he doesn't have the wherewithal to plan for it. But this is a disservice. I mean, Poop, at some point you got to say to yourself that it was never constructed in a championship way. This was constructed in, how can we make this the flashiest product possible? There's no way we should have ever thought that this was capable of going through a 17-game season and making a playoff run. Enough already.
Well, I got scolded. I'm gonna go sit in the corner over here because I just got scolded.
I'm sorry, it hurt me more than it hurt you.
You're good. Hey, if I deserve to be scolded, that's fine. I'm a big boy. I can take it. And kind of hard to disagree with what you said. And to me, an indictment also was Tua was very efficient. The offense looked like an NFL offense. But there were a couple of plays where I'm looking like, this is really simple. You're going to tell me that none of your other quarterbacks could do it? Like the touchdown pass to Achane. I mean, you're going to tell me that none of your other quarterbacks could do that? Right. And if that's the case, then my job is that my Lord is that mismanagement that you couldn't get somebody even efficient enough to do that. Like the quick throw to Waddle at the number, I think in the second half that was good for 20 yards. Again, great job by Tua to get rid of it quick. Is it really that difficult to play? I mean, come on. And again, I don't want to take anything away from Tua, and Lord knows I've been accused of doing that because he was good. And even that last drive, here's the thing, Ken. Even that last drive where we're going to bitch that they had to punt the ball away. They were 11 for 15 on third down. I mean, it's not like they sucked on third down. That one where they needed to kill the clock, they didn't get it.
It's just in winning time, they face planted. Here's where I'll defend Tua making that play. And you're right. It does not appear as if it's that difficult where you sit, you wait a couple of beats, you pick out Achane, who had outstanding blocking down the field. And I think Mark Schlereth, who, by the way, I think Tua might be on the Mark Schlereth Christmas list because
forget Christmas, Valentine's list. I mean,
or whatever holiday you celebrate. But and listen, I love talking about Tua as much as the next guy, but Mark, I mean, there was another team that was playing here today as well. Anyways, but it is a timing thing, and I think we saw that when you had Huntley, or Skyler, the timing, if you wait an extra second, you're dead. That play's blown up because the blocks are fought through. That's where I give benefit of the doubt to Tua. He's making that play because he knows immediately when to get rid of the football.
Fair enough. Good point. In fact, this was, why do I always keep forgetting the name of the show on ESPN where they award points for making good observations? You get a couple of points here. Ding, 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 ding. A couple of points for you, LaVicka. You might get the final speech at the end of the show.
Perfect. I appreciate that. But I would like to do one of these at some point, Poop. And I always love talking with you. And I love seeing your smiling face and your refined grain beard and your Hard Rock Stadium sellout crowd background. And I love talking with all of the I love talking with the fine folks who watch us after every game. For once, I'd like to have something celebratory, because even in the lone win we've had in the last month, it was that Patriots debacle, or it felt like we were wading through dumpster water that entire time talking about that win. This felt like, here we go. Even if it was going to be a close game, Tua played well, defense was formidable, but then the second half defense, you can nitpick all you want, but the overarching storyline is that Anthony Weaver's side of the ball, and again, it could be because of injury, or it could be because your depth is slow, or your depth is just not good enough, or you couldn't tackle Kyler Murray in the backfield. The defense was too porous in the second half. That is why you lost this game, because the defense did not play to winning standard in the second half.
Yeah, and the question then becomes, was what we had seen of the defense playing so well in the past few weeks the result of playing throwing challenged Anthony Richardson, statue Jacoby Brissett, with all the respect to both of those guys, and then Mason Rudolph / Will Levis before that? Those are the three previous quarterbacks they faced. And this is where I don't know that they play. I didn't see any like nasty breakdowns. I just saw a team that got beat constantly, and a lot of times on the verge of making plays, and then Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride just being better than the Dolphins were.
Right.
And if you look at the touchdown to Marvin Harrison, he's running across against Jalen Ramsey, who spoiler alert, it's a great cornerback. That was the one play where the Dolphins didn't get Murray out of the pocket, so he had a decent amount of time. Harrison gets behind Ramsey, and then nice throw, nice catch.
So you're right. You're exactly right. And Marvin Harrison ran that route expertly, where he's able to drag across the field, and he had a good 3 steps on Ramsey pretty much the entire way, or at least from that far side hash all the way across into the right side of the end zone. But here's my problem. You are paying a lot of money on the back end of the defense to not be beaten by Kyler Murray taking a shot to the chest in the pocket, throwing the ball into the air, and Marvin Harrison going and tracking it down without Jordan Poyer being 3 steps late, or Jalen Ramsey getting beaten on a drag across the field. Like, those are great plays, but there's a lot of money in being invested back there to hang with a guy who has not had an exemplary career to this point with the Cardinals in Marvin Harrison Jr. Yeah, you got out executed. And you're right. You tipped the cap. But, man, like, this team in those moments has spent a lot of money to make sure that that doesn't happen, or you're able to offset that. And that's what's so frustrating. So you're right, Poop. Like, great job, Kyler Murray, who played his backside off, his diminutive backside off in the second half, okay? And Marvin Harrison Jr. and the tight ends got involved. Apparently, by the way, did you know, happy tight end day, Poop? It was only brought up 30,000 times.
Oh, my Lord, enough.
I mean, enough already. But in true Dolphins fashion, National Tight End Day was Julian Hill fumbling at the goal line and leaving the game momentarily, and then Jonnu Smith drop for what would have been a big play first down. So happy National Tight End Day to you. But you got to make those plays. There's too much invested on the back end of the defense to make those plays. There just is.
Okay. And again, see the one to Harrison on the sideline. Yeah, he got separation on Jalen Ramsey, which is why he was able to make the crazy catch. And it's one of those where Murray makes the throw with Jordan Brooks, basically his shoulder pads smack dab in his sternum. It's rough. And now here we go. Now they're 2-5. Oh, by the way, they're playing at Buffalo on Sunday.
Right.
Let's have fun with that one.
Good point.
Trade deadline is 9 days away. Like, Okay.
This is where you do need to start thinking about the trade deadline.
Who?
I know. But are you just going to break it down for some potential draft pieces, whether it be mid-round or late? I don't know who'd be available with value because all the guys you locked in money-wise, and we've talked about this, you're not getting rid of these big money guys because you're trying to still build around them. But you've got a decision to make in 9 days. And man, after that Bills game, boy, where you're in all likelihood, I hate to be a party pooper here, but you're going to be 2-6. And then we need to have the discussion of, is this a lost season? Because I'm sort of teetering right now on that entire thing. Yeah, there might be some names that we don't talk about again 8 days from now.
Like who?
Oh, God. I mean,
is there Tyreek?
No, you're not going to get a red. What if? I mean, Mostert, wouldn't Mostert have some value to somebody?
Yeah, no, I think he'd be a guy absolutely. Because first of all, because HN is RB1, and I hope people don't go crazy because Mostert had 2 touchdowns, which is great, but 1 yard and 6 yards. I mean, yeah. By the way, hat tip to Tyreek Hill for the great seal block on the second touchdown. Either him or Jeff Wilson Jr. I mean, Jeff Wilson's inactive, and Jeff Wilson's a solid running back. So I'm calling anybody who needs a running back. Throw me a 5th round pick, 6th round pick, whatever.
I mean, I think that teams would certainly be looking to reinforce the defensive line. I think someone that you brought in, you signed, short contract, who has some value now. Couldn't you shop around Calais Campbell to a contender? Get like a 4th out of that?
For a rental, yeah. If you find a contender that's got one piece missing there, sure. I think that's a phone call. But I don't think I know some Dolphin fans. If they're thinking it's going to be one of the big names,
no, it's not.
I'm not seeing that.
And also, what message does if Chris Grier starts shopping all of the big name guys that they signed extension to? That's his job. He's conceding, I screwed this up. So there is not a chance in God's green earth that someone like Tyreek is being sent off or Jalen Waddle's being shopped or anything along those lines. Because, again, that is Chris Grier admitting, I just burned a lot of money for a team that's probably not a postseason contender. He is not doing that under any circumstance.
No, correct. Man, I don't even know what else to say about this. So let's check out the comments because I don't know.
The season that last week we were pretty adamant, Poop, that the season was not over. I've got to admit, I'm shaky on that after this one. That was I don't know how you let that get away. Like, that's the type of thing. If you can't win that, what are we doing?
No, and this is Arizona, by the way, which has now just won back-to-back games for the first time since 2021, on the road after playing on Monday night, 27th ranked in the NFL in defense. Right. They were dead last in third down defense, which maybe explains why the Dolphins had so much success. But this was a game you absolutely needed to win. And to me, and shows you how much I know, and this is where by all means jump into the comments and you can pow me all you want, because I thought James Conner running the ball inside was going to be the biggest issue for the Dolphin defense on this day, and it certainly wasn't, because outside of that 17-yard run right before the 2-minute warning, the Dolphins completely shut him down.
Yeah, they tackled well.
They did. So,
one more thing. I'm sorry, Pope. I'm sorry. Enough with the damn fades to Tyreek Hill. Enough. They haven't worked in 2 years. Enough already. You have a chance. You have 3 plays from your 7-yard line or in at the end of the first half. And how do you conclude your time there before you trot Jason Sanders on the field? A fade to the left side of the end zone to one of the shortest, albeit elite, but one of the shortest impact receivers in the NFL. It has not worked in 2 seasons. It hasn't worked since, I think, when the Dolphins won in Arizona in Tua's first year throwing to a receiver. It wasn't Tyreek, but it was a receiver fade.
How quickly you forget season opener 2023 at the Chargers.
You're right. That's what I was thinking of. I'm sorry. You're exactly right. Yes. So in like a season and a half, that hasn't worked. Enough already with that. It's just such a white flag type of play. I hate
very low percentage. The guy was 5'8".
Yeah. Come on.
And by the way, because I know somebody's out there is probably going to say it, Yeah, sure. They could have flagged for DPI, but there's no guarantee they're going to do that. And Ken, you're giving me that. That's
No,
I've seen flags on less than that, but
no, you're right. You're right. But if you're going to say Tyreek Hill should have gotten a defensive pass interference, or even further than that, oh, you run that play because you know that Tyreek Hill is going to have to be held and the official's going to have to throw the flag. That is soft. That's loser. I'm not saying you said that, but I have heard ball knowers, quote unquote, tell me, you throw that fade to him because he's so fast and he gets behind the DB and that's a sure thing flag and put the ball to one. That's a loser approach to football. And it didn't work again for the Dolphins, so stop running it.
Oh, I'm going to go on a tangent that's going to piss some people off, but I don't care. That's like playing basketball and you're one of those shooters who pump fakes and then jumps into the defender to get the foul. Oh,
I call that the James Harden. Yes, yeah. Exactly right.
Can't stand that. Okay, let's tackle some of these questions. And we're going to start with Caleb Emerson. Caleb, thank you very much for the contribution. I've been saying it, poor tackling defense, outcoached, poor play calling, first down at the 50, and we get 1 yard. Where's the playmakers? Ken, do you want to tackle that one?
Well, I'll tackle it, and it'll probably be better than the Dolphins on Kyler Murray today.
I set you up there, but
that was well done. I really appreciate that platform, and it's why we work well together. Listen, we discussed when he's saying the ball at the 50, I have to assume he's talking about the final Dolphins possession, right, where they ultimately end up punting and the Cardinals get the ball with like 4.5 left to go. As we discussed, I thought that it was a little bit dicey. The play calling failed you, but I agree with you to an extent, Poop. The offensive line really sort of fell apart because the Cardinals were sending bodies on 2nd and 3rd down. Now, I was not impressed with the throw it to the flat for Achane and pray on 3rd and 9 that he's going to make people miss. He did not have many blockers in front, and it looked like they had even tried to overload the left side of the line and still got blasted off of that. I would have loved for them to try and throw one of those bubble screens like they did in the first half that went for big yardage, where Tua is just simply putting it up over the top with some touch. That probably, if you're going to have a short pass in that spot, is the right way to go. The fact remains that the Dolphins defense allowed points every single possession of the second half except for one. There was a brief third quarter 3 and out for the Cardinals. That was the only time that the Dolphins got off the field in the final 2 quarters. Did Mike McDaniel get out coached? I think he got out coached, but I think more than ripping on Mike McDaniel, credit to Gannon on the other side, who I thought managed the final 4 minutes really well, including the way that he called plays to burn Dolphins timeouts and then the way that they moved themselves into field goal position and used their timeouts wisely. So, yeah, Mike McDaniel got out coached in the second half. He also got out quarterbacked, unfortunately, by Kyler Murray, and really the secondary fell apart. But hat tip to the Cardinals. Like, Jonathan Gannon's got that thing going a little bit. He's a decent head coach with a decent football team. The Dolphins were the better team today, unfortunately, and still took the loss.
Yeah, and they're feisty. The Cardinals. You look at that roster, and not a whole lot of recognizable names. They're just very feisty.
Yeah.
No, maybe the most depressing thing on defense was, I'm looking here, 1st and 10 from after that counter run for 17 yards right before the 2-minute warning. It's 1st and 10 from the 33. Dolphins still have a chance to get the ball, and then the Cardinals run 3 straight plays, and they get the first down running the ball. That's depressing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on here. Matthew Blue, thank you very much for the contribution, Matthew. Xavier Howard still a free agent? Yes, he is. I am told he's working out. Still wants to play. Phone hasn't rang yet. Not sure that ship hasn't sailed here.
Yeah.
You're laughing. Why are you laughing?
I mean, Poop, I'm not the smartest guy. Okay. And I am the furthest thing from an NFL executive. All right. And far be it from me to have these strong thoughts. But if you're struggling and your season's falling apart and the fan base has the torches out and they're ready to pillory the team facility in Miami Gardens, okay? And you bring back a guy who apparently was toxic in the locker room. They would have brought him back. He has God knows how many accusations surrounding him about different things that bring great questions to the organization. A guy who is admittedly pouty and definitely did not leave on the greatest terms. Again, I'm just a guy, but that doesn't seem like that's the grand old fix to the Miami Dolphins to bring in a guy like Xavier Howard. I just don't think that is the type of thing that they're going to try to shake the tree and see if they can get him to fall, pick him up, bring him into the friendly confines of the Dolphins facility. That's not going to happen.
No, there's some mojo missing with this team, and yeah, I don't know
the mojo bringer. I'll tell you that much right now.
Here you go. Zen Man. Thank you, Zen Man. Appreciate it. Thanks to you and Mr. LaVicka for the excellent commentary. Oh, thank you again. More importantly, what is your midseason evaluation of first-round pick Chop Robinson? Tries hard. He's a good kid. He's got a good work ethic, good attitude. Where the hell are the plays?
Right. What I would say is Chop Robinson at this point in his career, he makes you feel excited in training camp because that 44 is always in the backfield running at the guy in the red jersey, right? He gets you, you're scintillated, you're titillated. You love what you see from Chop Robinson. Here's the problem. Chop Robinson from training camp is the same guy that we're seeing Chop Robinson 44 in the backfield during the season and not hitting anything. You need to add that extra hitting somebody if you're going to be someone who realizes expectations and somebody who's more than just showing flashes. That would be my evaluation of Chop Robinson. Is there promise there? Yes, but this isn't two-hand touch. Therefore, it's been a little bit disappointing.
A little bit? Man.
A lot.
Okay. Yeah, and to me, it's even more damaging because the Dolphins have had a need for a third wide receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. was there for the taking. They've had a need for interior offensive linemen, even though the offensive line overall played fairly well. But Graham Barton certainly would have looked well by all accounts. He's playing great in Tampa Bay. And this is this is a guy in college who, has all the physical traits you want, just didn't make a ton of plays. And this is what we're seeing. So highly disappointing. And then not terribly encouraging either that Mohamed Kamara can't get off the inactive list.
Right.
With Quentin Bell, with all due respect, Quentin Bell, who was a great training camp story. And I made this point, I don't even know if it was in writing or on an earlier podcast, is be careful when you hear training camp sensation stories based largely on quotes from teammates. Teammates will always tell you, oh man, look out for that guy. This guy's going to be great. That guy's going to be great. This guy's going to be great. Well, Quentin Bell had like a really one good week of practice. And then once the joint practices started, it was like send out an APB because the dude's not there. He's contributing on special teams, on defense, just not making a lot happen.
Well, I mean, I did that to you during training camp as well. You asked me about Jaquan Burton, who stuck around for an awful long time in training camp, wide receiver, me being the voice of FAU football. Of course, I'm going to say great things about Jaquan Burton, who, by the way, I thought especially that final preseason game where he came in and played a little bit of running back, I thought he showed his versatility. I was very offended. Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer didn't keep him on the team. But you're exactly right. Like, what is the most, in your long time covering the Dolphins, Poop, what is the guy who flashed in training camp, who everybody was talking up, and then it also applied to his rookie season, and maybe it applied for an entire career, but who's the greatest out-of-nowhere training camp to contributor success story? Because I have one in particular. I wonder if it's the same one. Okay.
He came in as an undersized fifth-round pick, and very quickly you could tell the dude could play, and then as a rookie, he was really good. And he had a pretty decent career last I checked.
Yeah, I'd say it was okay, actually. For me, it was an undrafted player who during rookie camp right after the draft 2008, you're like, man, he's kind of smooth. Catches the football. He's got a pretty good head of dreadlocked hair there. And all of a sudden, Devon Best became a sensation. It was one of the keys to that 2008 AFC East run. So in my time covering the Dolphins, whatever that is, 16 years ago at this point, that's my greatest, who the hell is that to? Oh, man, they couldn't win without him type of player.
Yeah, I remember I've made this comment before many times. My recollection is 2008 training camp saying that dude's always open. He is always open.
And then it just continued through preseason games and then into the season, especially once the Wildcats sort of spread everything out and Pennington would just pick them out all the time.
Darts.
Yeah.
Uncle Ron, I'm going to take issue with you, Uncle Ron. Poupart and LaVicka, why are you afraid to call for Stephen Ross to sell the team? He hired Tannenbaum, he hired Greer, and too cowardly to fire him. Number one, because it's his team. He can do whatever the hell he wants with it. Who am I to tell him, Stephen Ross, sell the team? I will agree with your point overall that maybe he sometimes makes bad decisions. By the way, he did not hire Chris Greer. Well, technically, he promoted maybe him along with other execs promoted Chris Greer. Chris Greer's been with the Dolphins since 2000. Right. Stephen Ross hasn't had the Dolphins since 2000. So initially promoted to GM in 2016. This was when Tannenbaum was there. So Tannenbaum would have been the one who would have hired Chris Greer as GM. So, and again, but the bottom line is it's his team. He will sell if he wants to sell, and doesn't make a difference what we suggest.
It is. I am an unabashed Stephen Ross supporter, and I've said it here, and I've said it other places. Like, Stephen Ross is a competitor. And this is not me trying to, Stephen Ross doesn't care who I am. I think he might kind of know who I am. He doesn't care what I'm saying. So I have no incentive to talk about Stephen Ross like I'm about to talk about him. He wants to win. There's a reason that new facility exists in Miami Gardens. There's a reason why across the board, according to ESPN, the Dolphins are considered the top destination for NFL players. They're a first-class organization. That's Stephen Ross. That's his vision. That's the people around him. Improvements to the stadium took a little bit of fighting with Florida politicians, but ultimately put up a lot of his money to make sure that venue was improved so that Super Bowls could come, so that the economy could flourish. F1, college football, massive games, international soccer. That's all Stephen Ross. And you can say, well, Ken, how come he doesn't just put all that stuff into the football team? All right. You're right. You're right. But he's a businessman, and this also all trickles into this franchise, into the quest to make this thing a winner. So you can certainly criticize Stephen Ross for he doesn't have the right people around him, or he's listening to the wrong people, or the people he's hired, they've come up short, or maybe it's just bad luck. Maybe it's the curse of the quest. I don't know. But the one thing I do know is there are not many more owners than Stephen Ross that put the time and the energy and the resources into this football team more than Stephen Ross. And dare I say, if Stephen Ross sold this football team, the Dolphins would be in an even worse, more frustrating predicament, because you're not going to find more owners, big money people that want to win and have tried to win than Stephen Ross. And if there was no salary cap, I promise you this would be the old school Yankees of the NFL, where money would not be an issue. Everybody would be paid, and we'd be talking like Manchester City, Real Madrid, Barcelona levels of money spent year after year after year. There's my Stephen Ross rant.
Okay.
And but it doesn't, because I know a lot of people, Poop, are coming at us. Why don't you have the guts to say Stephen Ross should fire Chris Greer? Again, he might. But what is it like? Poop and I saying, Stephen Ross, fire Chris Greer. What is that going to do? We're not in the inner circle of Stephen Ross. He doesn't listen to us. I do think if this continues and the bottom continues to fall out and the Dolphins lose, if we get late in the season, don't think Stephen Ross isn't going to consider it. He'll make the move if he has to.
Okay. No.
Maybe it's just hope on my part. But Chris,
I don't get all torqued up about ownership, because ultimately he's not the one who makes the main decisions. All I know about Stephen, again, like Ken mentioned, he's never been afraid to spend. He's built like ridiculous facilities that get straight A's from all NFL players. He's not the reason the Dolphins. Well, again, maybe he's gotten the wrong people to make the big decisions. Maybe that's the decision.
I think he got off on the wrong foot when he started bringing in the celebrity ownership right off the bat. And he's never quite shed that from a pure football fan standpoint, that moniker of just, is someone who wants to be, I almost said something else. This is a family postgame. Someone who wants to be involved with celebrity, right? He wasn't in football for the right reasons when Mark Anthony and J-Lo were coming through and the Williams sisters. That was such a long time ago. That stuff doesn't matter. I mean, look, when you go to a Dolphins game, look around you. Like, that's all Stephen Ross. This is first class all the way around. If you think he should get rid of Chris Greer, that's one thing. And you're probably right. But if you think he should sell the team, why? That makes absolutely no sense. It has not been like the Oakland A's where you've just screwed over the fan base. No, it's just been substandard in important ways on the football side.
Okay, let's move on. I want to keep beating a dead horse in here. Don Shula, 73. Thank you very much for the contribution. Has there been a game where Julian Hill hasn't made a major mistake today, fumble near the goal line? Why is he out there? Answer to the first question is not sure. The answer to the last question is very, very easy because the Dolphins coaching staff, I would guess mainly Mike McDaniel, are completely enamored. This is where I do the heart thing with my laptop with his blocking. And he's a good blocker, and that forgives a lot of sins, including the penalties and the fumble today. That's why they love him so much. And not only do they like him a lot that he's out there, he has basically usurped Durham Smythe as the starting tight end.
I'm so done with Julian Hill. I can't. If you don't have the number 9 on your Dolphins uniform and you have that TE by your name in the roster, I'm done with you. I can't take the mistakes, the penalties. They're a complete non-factor in the passing game. I'm watching Red Zone, okay? And I keep hearing that name up in Cincinnati. Dissect. I keep hearing it over and over again. Scott Hansen. Dissect. And you can't tell me, I know that he's not a good blocker, but you can't tell me in a Mike McDaniel offense that is soft as it is. Like, we thought that this was going to be the second coming of the 49ers where you're bullying people around. In retrospect, in year 3 of Mike McDaniel, Mike Gesicki would have made a huge difference in this offense, in my opinion, as a target for Tua, considering that this team doesn't really push anybody off the ball unless you're Alec Ingold. So do we really, looking back, shouldn't you maybe spent the money on Mike Gesicki, and then we're not going through this? Julian Hill's just a body on the field. Durham Smythe reduced snaps, just a body on the field, really providing nothing other than the fact that, they can go out there and block. But what good has that done to this point? The specter of Gesicki continues to drive me crazy.
Well, yeah, that's rare to get a Gesicki defender here. Well, this is where somebody would say, maybe not me, but somebody would say Dolphins do need Julian Hill for his blocking because they have had success running the ball certainly the last 3 weeks. And today, what's the numbers? 150 yards again, 6 yards a pop. Does that get accomplished with Mike Gesicki instead of Julian Hill doing the blocking? That's a fair question to ask. Phil Montgomery, thank you very much, Phil. Dennis Hickey is a better GM than Chris Greer. I said what I said. Ooh, we're stealing lines from the former Dolphins podcast. Although I do say that as well.
Shout out him.
It was both of us. Both Omar and I used to say, I said what I said. Dennis Hickey, better GM than Chris Greer. Okay. My whole thing was with Chris Greer, and I've had this argument with other beat writers, is where does the buck stop? Yeah. Because we do know Chris Greer, his MO is, I will give my coaches what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So are we so sure that it wasn't Mike McDaniel who told Chris Greer in the offseason, you don't need to go get a backup quarterback. The guys I have here, Mike Weiss, Scarlett Thompson, they will get the job done if something happens to Tua.
But if we're talking about, and I have nothing against Dennis Hickey, I don't care. But if we're doing that and we're playing results, I mean, what results did Dennis Hickey have that Chris Grier hasn't accomplished. Like, at the end of the day, I guess we could point to different moves. We could point to different signings. We could talk about savvy drafts and all those things. But ultimately, who the hell cares if it doesn't result in a playoff win? Like, just one, which none of it has. So you can say all you want. It goes back to the Brian Flores, better than Mike McDaniel. All right, fine. But what results came of it? What has come of it? And the answer to that is not a single solitary playoff win. Not one. So what's the point of relitigating Dennis Hickey versus Chris Grier?
Except, well, because we're a talk show here, so that's part of it. And except I would make the argument, and I will get ready to duck after I say it, that Brian Flores was in the early stages of the rebuilding, whereas Mike McDaniel is further down the road. And Mike McDaniel also has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, and Bradley Chubb, who Brian Flores did not have the opportunity to have. So
you're right. I would make the argument that Brian Flores screwed the Dolphins, set the Dolphins back another 2-3 years because his plucky band of overachievers screwed the Dolphins in the draft. And he's a tattletale, and so then you lose a first-round draft pick, allegedly, because of that as well. So Brian Flores hurt more than he helped, in my opinion, based on what everything that transpired after Brian Flores, okay? So, one, the overachieving, and two, the tattletaling. That's the problem for me. So, fine, go back. So, let me ask you, Poop, the Dennis Hickey era. What's where does your Dolphins brain compare that with what Chris Grier has done or hasn't done?
What stands out to me about the Dennis Hickey era was the division, or what is it called now, the FCS draft, which was like 2014, I want to say, where they had 8 picks and 6 of them were lower division players. And I don't know that many of them panned out, although he did get Jarvis Landry at the bottom of the second round, which was a hell of a pick because that dude could play. Yep. But then they took Juwan James at 19 overall. And to me, you're going to take a right tackle in the first round. That dude better be really, really good. And Juwan James, while solid, was not somebody I think you needed to take in the first round. So, right. But I'm like you. I respect your opinion, Phil, and all good. I don't know that there's a major difference there between Dennis Hickey and Chris Grier. This is an interesting one here. Zenman, thanks to you and Mr. LaVicka for the excellent commentary. Thank you again. More importantly, SNL or SCTV?
All right. I hate to be derogatory towards your native land, Poop. I didn't get the Canadian humor of SCTV. I'm sorry. I didn't get it. And I appreciate the talent that came out of there. Like, I truly do. I would argue. So the fact kids in the hall formed me more than SCTV did, if we're going to talk about Canadian-based sketch comedy, okay? But the GOAT of all time is Saturday Night Live. In my mind. And I can't stand the people, because this goes generationally. Anytime anything hits virally on Saturday Night Live, first funny thing I've seen in 10 years on SNL. Oh, stop it, you old geezers.
Wow, I feel attacked. By the way, I still think probably the funniest thing I've ever seen on SNL is the Peyton Manning United Way commercial.
Yeah, where he's throwing missiles at the kids.
Yeah, that's hilarious. It's not that hard. I throw, you catch. I mean, it's hilarious. Matto, how are you, Matto? Could we get a second rounder for Mike McDaniel to the Jets? Kidding, sort of. I know it's a vague thing to say, but the team just seems soft.
It is. Like, it is.
Somebody who makes it a point of wearing a blue hat has been screaming that from the rooftops for about a year and a half, and I've been scolded and reprimanded and ridiculed for saying it. But yeah, it's not. There's nothing new about there. And again, this is the team that they built. They went speed, track team, and all that instead of power. And I will always go back. 2021, 6th pick. Dolphins could have had Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
Took Jalen Waddle, who's a really, really good player. You tell me who impacts a game and a team more over a 17-game regular season, your stud offensive lineman or your wide receiver.
And the tough part about physicality, about toughness, is you don't just improve on that from one season to the next, right? It's if you have a core group of players, you're not just going to automatically be able to train them in a 5-month span how to be tougher going into a new season. There are additions that need to be made. There's a certain type of player that needs to be acquired. There is a certain type of player that needs to be maintained, and perhaps that you're able to use that in different ways, or you need to draft that in your organization. It's become clear to me it's not just a structural thing. I thought Mike McDaniel would come in, and this would be very similar to what Shanahan runs in San Francisco, where it is bruising. It is pushing you and shoving you and moving bodies all over the place. And for the exception of Alec Ingold and then Julian Hill, when he's not grabbing someone's jersey and having a yellow flag thrown on offense, there's not a lot of toughness. And I suppose Mostert will run some people over at times, which is great. But especially defensively, unless it's Calais Campbell and unless it's Zach Sealer, there's not a lot of toughness on that back end. Maybe Javon Holland, but as far as toughness is concerned, that's not a quick fix. And so you're sort of stuck where you're at. You're stuck with finesse football, and it's become clear that finesse football, while it still can be effective, and we saw it today, it's probably not a winning strategy. I mean, the Chiefs, they went from dazzling, high-flying football, aesthetically pleasing, to them getting tough and getting murky and making sure that they're really beefing up the offensive and the defensive front. And look at them now. They're a totally different team from what they were 5 years ago, but just, if not more effective. And that took a while. That was a process, and that's not going to happen overnight with the Dolphins, which makes this doubly frustrating.
No, and the crazy part, what happened to Kansas City? They lost the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay because they couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes. They had somebody in his face the second. And then what did they do in the offseason? They signed Joe Thuney as a free agent, who had been one of the best guards in the NFL for like 6, 7, 8 years. And then they draft Creed Humphrey in the second round. I think the Dolphins might have had a shot at him, who I think everybody knew was going to be a stud. And lo and behold, he's one of the best centers in the league now. And they drafted Trey Smith, a guard, fourth, fifth, or sixth round. And he's also become a stud. And boom, like that, they have the best interior offensive line in the NFL.
Right.
And It's just seeing the problem, addressing it. And then on defense, they just hit with guys, I mean, all the time. It's annoying, actually.
Yeah.
Mr. G, thank you very much for the contribution. Appreciated. John C, thank you, John C. I think the turning point was pass on your own 13 with a 10-point lead and the safety happens. Whoever called that, fire them after the game. We were running well. Damn. By the way, that would be Mike McDaniel who would have called that.
Yeah, that's him.
Was it pass? Let me double check here. Yep, it was pass. Oh, yeah, the first down play was the one where Ben Still, former Dolphin, one-game Miami Dolphin defensive lineman, got his hand on the ball. Yeah, you could. And this is where, again, let me look at the number of 20. It was 25 carries today. It was more than 40 each of the past 2 weeks. And I understand you got Tua back in the lineup, and McDaniel needed to fight the urge to revert to let's chuck it.
Well, you know what was going to be? It was going to be one of those boundary passes. Like I can almost it was going to be that pass game is the extension of the run game stuff. Correct. But that's the risk you take. And looking back at it, I don't necessarily think that was the center's fault. I think that Tua, I thought that was at the shoulder of Tua. Could it have been better? Sure. But I thought Tua got caught sort of trying to get himself into a throwing motion before the ball actually got there. It went at the top of his fingers and then launched into the air, and he had to go and chase it down, and eventually got called for the illegal batting out of the end zone. But yeah, I get that is the risk you take. And Mike McDaniel's going to try and give different looks. And that's a situation where it did, like, things sort of fell apart on you. Now, you did come back and score. You did come back on the next possession. The next time you touched the ball, you went down and you scored. The simple fact is that you could not stop the Cardinals offense. The defense could not stop the Cardinals offense, could not take advantage of having Kyler Murray in trouble. Kyler Murray had some really good throws, pressure in his face. Marvin Harrison Jr. took over. But the safety, it certainly comes into play when you're up 2 with a second left and the Cardinals have the field goal unit on the field to win the game, right? Like that one really comes back. But then there's the inability to get off the field on third down. There's the lack of tackling, the lack of finishing off Kyler Murray in the backfield that really led to your demise in the second half. I'm putting the loss more on that than I am the safety, the inopportune time to call a pass play at the 3-yard line.
No, it was at the 12 actually.
Right, but I'm saying it hit the ground at the 3, and then he had to go into
correct. Yeah, and you make the good point because the Dolphins actually, when they came back and scored, it was 27-18. So they were up 2 scores in the fourth quarter, gave up a touchdown drive, had the punt, gave up the field goal. So, yeah. Okay, Ty Main. Thank you very much, Ty. Jordan Poyer used Miami as a retirement fund. I would say maybe, except no, because he signed for the veteran minimum. He easily could have just retired, you know.
Yeah.
But again, this is where you don't say Uncle Al didn't warn you. That I talked to a bunch of people. I saw the Bills quite a few times last year, and I talked to a lot of buddies who cover the Bills or work for the Bills or work around the Bills. And it was kind of unanimous. The dude is a fighter, great intangibles, but the speed's not there anymore, and he's just not the guy he once was. In fact, I got to bring back the most famous quote, still the best quote on the All Dolphins podcast since the start, and we're at episode 392. Tim Graham of The Athletic, who will be joining me, by the way, this week for Behind Enemy Lines, who basically said the Dolphins signed Jordan Poyer for his balls.
Tim Graham, eloquent as always from Tim, by the way. Listen, you can see it even if you're not a hardcore football fan. When you look out at and you see the same guy 2-1 getting beaten over and over again, he's consistently a step or two behind the play. And is he still a ball hawk? Sure, but he doesn't make up any ground. It's not the same Jordan Poyer of 3-4 years ago, where he's not only hawking the ball, but he is where he needs to be on a regular basis. And this is not a schematic issue for Jordan Poyer. This is simply a guy who's aging, a safety who's lost his step, and unfortunately at that position. And if Javon Holland is in the lineup, out of the lineup, in the lineup, out of the lineup, injured, not injured, injured, banged up, and there's inconsistency in who his running mate back there is going to be, that's a significant problem. Not to mention when you're down to Jalen Ramsey at corner, and then you do have some inexperience, or at least, I don't know, average type corner play, that's going to get exposed. And Jordan Poyer is in a position now with this Dolphins defense, the state of it, where he's being exposed. And it's noticeable to the naked eye, extremely noticeable. Now there's no fighting it.
Yeah, and I will give credit where credit is due. He did have one good play where he recognized where the ball was going, came off the guy he was covering to get his hand on the ball. That was a good play. The thing is, if he's asked to cover a guy one-on-one or a guy coming across the zone where he has to pick him up, the wheels just aren't out there anymore.
Right. And what was that, a 3rd and 7 where Calais Campbell flushed Kyler Murray out of the pocket? He had to go to his left and then tried to float one down that left hash, and Poyer was able to come up and probably could have picked it, but knocked it to the ground. You're right. That was a good recovery play. But again, like you just said, that's not him technically covering someone. That's him accounting for a receiver that's found a pocket.
Yep. Birthday salami, thank you, BS. sorry, BS. Birthday salami. It just like that. No, I apologize. Birthday salami. Thank you very much. If Greer is gone at the end of the season, does McDaniel survive, or is it likely to be a complete reset if an axe gets swung? By the way, sure, Miss Cater's tackling today. Cater can tackle, and Cater is coming off a really good game against the. By the way, Cater, I wrote about this on the website. Got fined for 2 celebrations after last week. I don't know why are you laughing?
Because it's just funny. Like, coming off of that game and to add insult to injury, and I guess in Cater Kohu's situation, literal injury, you also get fined twice for celebrating in a game that you lost to Anthony Richardson, who was 2 of 15 passing at halftime today for the Colts. It's just so Dolphin-y.
It is. So if Greer is gone at the end of the season, did McDaniel survive? That's a great question. That's a great question. I don't know where Stephen Ross's head is. I know he liked the fact that the Dolphins were relevant, all the national television. Now, if the Dolphins are going to become, I hate to use the term, a laughing stock, but certainly not relevant and kind of noteworthy for the wrong reasons, don't know if that reaches a point where Stephen Ross is going to be like,
I'm telling you, Papa, I would be stunned. I mean, shocked if after back-to-back years of playoff appearances, Mike McDaniel has this stinker and Stephen Ross okays a new GM coming in and getting rid of Mike McDaniel. I don't see that playing out at all. That would go against, I think, everything that Stephen Ross has shown what he's comfortable with as the owner of this franchise.
Except the last thing that he wants or can afford is apathy. And that's
does he care? He'll have Real Madrid come in and play 2 games in July, and he'll be fine. It'll be
not from a financial standpoint. I think from an ego standpoint. I think again, if people are yawning at the thought of the Dolphins, I think that's a blow to Stephen Ross. So let's move on. No, Obi-Wan, either of you know how to get tear stains out of a jersey. That's funny. I know. Thank you very much.
I'm not mascara you're wearing to get those tear stains on your
wow.
Jersey. Yeah.
His name is Ken LaVicka. You can reach him at KLV says.
Oh, by the way, little known fact about me. Speaking of makeup, in high school, I was in drama. To no surprise of anybody, I was a drama guy.
That explains it.
I did play sports as well, because I know some people, why is this guy talking about football? He's all of 5'7". There's no way he never played a snap of football. Wrong, my friend. But I did learn how to do makeup. I put on a very good foundation. I've done some TV work in the past, and all the TV veterans are shocked when they bust out the makeup kits, and I can put on my own makeup. I do put eyeliner in to accentuate these blue eyes. I'm telling you, Poop, I have hidden talents all over the place. Makeup application, one of them.
Okay.
While we're on the subject.
I've never been on TV and I don't wear makeup, so I will defer to you there.
No.
Where are we here? Eugene Xbox Gunner 305 LaBranche. Thank you very much for the contribution. Put it like this: Winston beat Lamar. And here's the thing: Dolphins play at Cleveland, and again, I know I can hear it in the background. Who doesn't matter? They're gonna be out of the playoffs anyway. Sure, but just for the sake of bringing it up, Dolphins play at Cleveland in Week 17. That game got a lot tougher now that Jameis Winston is playing quarterback instead of Deshaun Watson, who is completely done. I don't know.
Yeah. I was on national ESPN radio weeks before the season started saying Jameis Winston is maybe the best backup option in the NFL. Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston are maybe the best backup options in the NFL. Already the Colts had to dip into Joe Flacco. 2 promising results, right? Because he's really good and he's really solid. And you can make the argument Jameis Winston was maybe the best quarterback in that quarterback room in training camp. And all Deshaun Watson did was reinforce that. And the fact that it took the Achilles injury for Deshaun Watson last week to have Jameis Winston inserted as the starting quarterback suggests to me that it clearly, and this can go back to the ownership decision as well, because everybody wants Stephen Ross to sell now. Would you rather have Stephen Ross or Jimmy Haslam, who I think clearly was telling Kevin Stefanski, you keep Deshaun Watson in as the starting quarterback. This is my investment. I will not be proven wrong. I will not be embarrassed. You play Deshaun Watson as long as he can stand on 2 feet, to the detriment of that franchise, both internally and externally, and especially from a public relations standpoint when Jameis was sitting right there. So the Browns, arguably, I would say, are better now with Jameis Winston as their starting quarterback.
Oh, I don't think there's any question they're better now. Uncle Ron, thank you very much. To address LaVicka, it's known in the NFL as well that you can come here and enjoy the best facilities with zero jeopardy and get paid for not winning.
Well, you can go anywhere in the NFL and get paid for not winning. Like, that's not the question.
You think Calais Campbell is extending his career to a 17th season to go through a 5-12 finish, really?
It does pose the question, because the Chiefs got F marks with the way that Hunt runs that franchise, facilities, childcare, that entire thing. And the Chiefs are the dynasty in this spot. But this is my point. If you're the owner of a franchise, you're trying to put your team in the most comfortable position players can be in, because that, in theory, breeds success. Like, I don't know what you're looking for. Do you want him to tear down the facility, take out the slide, say, sorry, babysitters or nannies, we're no longer providing those. Let your kids fend on 27th Avenue for food every day, okay? Like, what do you want them to do? Like, Stephen Ross isn't going to tear the thing down and then put together some sort of catacombs-esque basement dwelling for this team to come and practice and reside in. I don't know the answer to that. Like, yeah, it sucks that you have that sparkling facility and you've made all of these financial commitments and it still hasn't resulted in winning, but you're not going to reverse that. And that's what good ownership does, because in theory, it'll pay dividends at some point.
No. Sorry?
Have you ever been to the catacombs in France?
Did we go to the catacombs? Yes. I'm told by my wife, who is listening in the background, yes, we have. Yes. And now I remember. Yes.
Spooky. Lots of bones. Very bony. Scully.
Imagine that, right?
Yeah, I know. It's weird.
Okay. No B1. Thank you very much. I don't know why I remember that. It's painful having your first and second round draft picks have zero impact. Picks seem wasted at this point. They're not wasted. They were made for the future more than anything else. And the Chop Robinson pick was projection into the future, because who knows how long Bradley Chubb's going to be around. And then possibly as a bonus, he'd contribute early when the Dolphins needed something. Unfortunately, that's not panning out. Patrick Paul all along was made with the future in mind, because there's no way he got to start against Tennessee, and all the coaches had to say about it is he got learning experience.
You were okay with drafting projection too, because you weren't. Okay. Chris Greer and the brain trust with the Dolphins, at least what they were conveying to us, they were okay with drafting projections because they had what they needed to compete and contend for the Lombardi Trophy in 2024. They were not supposed to have to rely on names like that in 2024. And look what that has gotten them. And that's the continued issue here. The depth on this team sucks. The more injuries that take place, the more below average to bottom third of the league the Dolphins look, while teams that are constructed with depth are able to overcome the injuries and find ways to stay afloat and win.
John C., thank you. Again, it was rhetorical regardless of the result. Those kinds of calls happen every damn game. Done with this guy. John C. was the one who asked about the safety. So I'm assuming, yeah, you just didn't like the fact that they were getting away from the running game. And can't argue with you there.
And is he done with Mike McDaniel? Is that what John is?
I believe that's what John, you're saying, John, and please confirm by all means. Matto, thank you very much. I might be crazy, but does Tyreek seem a bit off or a step slow? Do you see anything on tape, or am I imagining things also to make Ken feel better? Aaron Rodgers choked against a backup QB-led pass. Well, that's right. Jacoby Brissett had to come in the game because Drake May got injured. And the Jets, by the way, if you feel bad about the Dolphins, the Jets are 2-6.
Could be the Jets. You could be the Jets. Pick your poison in this spot, because as frustrated as Dolphins fans are, and again, like Woody Johnson went out there, and all they've done is kowtow to Aaron Rodgers. Come, great Savior, save us. And which one of your merry band of warriors would you like to come into the building and help us save the day? And not one thing has worked. One of those Aaron Rodgers power friends, Nathaniel Hackett, got the head coach fired already. Hackett's gone. You bring in a new play caller. That still sucks. New interim head coach. Oh, but he's got the respect of the locker room. That still sucks. Woody Johnson, after they get Devontae Adams, he's at the owners' meetings. What do you think about the team now, Woody? Oh, we're going to kick some ass. What's happened? Face plant, back-to-back losses, listless, bad. The New York media, all those tough guys, they want you to know how tough they are in the New York media. All they wrote about this week was the rah-rah speech that Devontae Adams gave after the loss to Pittsburgh. That stuff that Poop and I rip on South Florida media for doing with Tua. Oh, Tua, what a speech at halftime against Jacksonville. That's the type of inspiration. Like we're living in a Disney movie. The New York media, those people people. They got sucked into that with Davante Adams. And what did it mean today for the Jets? Absolutely freaking nothing. Nothing. So this feels bad. That thing is going to be in a bigger crater than this thing is if it doesn't turn it around.
I'd say you have more reason to be completely depressed being a Jets fan, considering they haven't made the playoffs since 2010. Yeah. You bring in Aaron Rodgers. It's like, oh, big hope. We're going to be contenders. Boom, the Achilles last year. Come back. Well, this year it's going to be right. And it's a complete. And you bring in Davante Adams, and they're still losing. So yeah, and also about Tyreek. I've said this. To me, Tyreek has looked off the entire year. I can't put my finger on it. He's still really, really fast. Is he as beep fast as he was last year? I don't think so. And again, there was one deep shot today, which was butt ugly.
But I would argue he should have been able to come back for that. I know that I'm probably being tough on him, and maybe I'm just piling on him. It was not a good throw from Tua, but it's the type of underthrown. Yeah, but it's the type of underthrown ball that a lot of top-end, highly paid receivers are able to make a play on coming back to it or draw some sort of hold.
Dude, it was underthrown by like 5 yards. Really?
I thought that he had a chance to come back on it. Maybe I'm a dope. Maybe I'm a huge dope, but I'm sure plenty of people will jump on. Yeah, Ken, you're a dope. You didn't play the game. You didn't there. But I just thought he should be able to come back to it. Yeah, it was a bad throw.
Okay. Yeah. John C. again. Hey, John, thank you very much. I don't want a GM who gets players their coaches want. I want a GM who hires a coach that want players in positions that fit the disciplines of the GM. We just keep running this crap on recycle. Yeah. I have no issue with what you're suggesting, John. I don't know that that's how the Dolphins operate. Remember, the key thing that Stephen Ross said after Brian Flores was let go is he want people to work in collaboration. That was a big word for him, collaboration.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like you, that I like the idea of you have a vision for the team and you have a guy who executes it.
Well, listen, they drafted Minkah Fitzpatrick thinking, oh, this is going to work for Brian Flores. This can be great for Brian Flores. And guess what? Minkah Fitzpatrick and Brian Flores never got along. Minkah Fitzpatrick did not agree with the plan Brian Flores had for him. Minkah Fitzpatrick said, I want out. The Dolphins sent Minkah Fitzpatrick to Pittsburgh. Pro Bowl, Minkah Fitzpatrick. So, again, because based on the comments, we're having a Brian Flores fan convention here today. But that specific scenario, the Dolphins tried that. Go get a guy we think is going to fit the defense, to fit the coach. The coach couldn't get along with the player. It wasn't a good marriage. Player goes away. Player has great success, not in a Dolphins uniform. So it can go both ways. But I don't disagree that for many teams, that approach works. GM brings in the talent. Coach says, I'll mold that. That's typically, I think, the majority of the time how this thing goes.
Well, there's nothing wrong with having one vision where the coach and the GM are on the same page. But at some point, if push comes to shove, yeah, again, what's your preferred setup? The strong GM or the strong head coach?
Yeah.
Whatever's happening is just not working for the Dolphins. So we can agree on that. Devin Barry, thank you very much, Devin. Should this organization start thinking about its draft position? Oh, that's depressing. We're not even out of October yet. Man, that's depressing. Let me look at the standings here real quick. And yes, I'm going to be that guy who's going to say, no, I'm not quite ready to close the door yet.
Not yet. But it is time to think about the trade deadline. Do you really, again, your ancillary pieces, can you shop anything for value? Because I do think at 2-5, we're at least in that discussion.
The Dolphins are tied for 10th with the Las Vegas Raiders, who currently are playing the Chiefs. And they're up 10-7 in the second quarter, but the Chiefs have a second and goal. If they lose, they'll be 2-6, and the Dolphins would be in 10th place. 7 teams make the playoffs. Not ready yet to be talking about draft position. And even if we were, you could start thinking about draft position. It's not like they're going to do anything to improve it. They're not going to start playing Skylar Thompson and sit Tyreek and sit Waddle just to try to ensure.
I can promise you they're not taking a quarterback in the first round. So you better start looking at what else is out there. By draft position, I always feel like some fans are angling for, well, would they look at a quarterback? Would they look at a quarterback? No, they're not going to. They're not going to look at not in the first round. They're not going to look at a quarterback.
I don't believe so either. That's just not how they operate. I would certainly hope that they would look for a quarterback, a veteran quarterback in the offseason. Those guys always become available. Get somebody who, if something happens to Tua, the season doesn't go south. And that's assuming this season can get recalibrated now that Tua is back, and maybe the offense will start. Tony Montana says, tank for Cam.
I don't know if that's going to happen. What I will say is, watching last night, I was at the Canes-Florida State game. By the way, that was the most juiceless Miami-Florida State game that I've been to. Usually in the blowouts, like one side gets cocky, and so there's some juice there. There was that epic 2015 game where Jalen Ramsey went off. The Canes almost upset Florida State, but then there was the missed field goal at the end, and Florida State won. A lot of juice. Last night was just boring. It was just blah. Cam Ward, though, after the game, they didn't need him. He caught a touchdown pass, but he's getting disrespected in the Heisman conversation. I'm sorry. Like, Miami's a middle-of-the-road ACC team without Cam Ward as the quarterback of that team. He should be ahead of Travis Hunter. He should be ahead of JT at Boise State, ahead of Daly, the quarterback at Army. I'm sorry. Cam Ward, disrespected in the Heisman conversation. I just needed to get that off my chest.
This is what we're all about. Oh, Tony. What does that mean?
That's a celebration. That's the Cam Ward celebration.
Oh, that is okay. Wow, we're as good as the Raiders. That makes me feel much better, Poops. Sorry. Sorry. Well, they're playing, the Dolphins are playing the Raiders in a few weeks, so we'll see. We'll find out if they're better than the Raiders.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Like, we're all mad at Mike McDaniel, and the Dolphins are 2-5, and it's frustrating and not really realizing expectations. Or you can be the Raiders and you could continue to be average to below average, but do so with a ton of drama. And you're already with a full-time head coach who is not even at the halfway point of his first year as the full-time head coach, and already a schism with Davante Adams. Davante Adams has been traded. Now there's talk of Max Crosby, even though in all caps the owner says Max Crosby's not going anywhere. But you're talking about guys in business for themselves, Antonio Pierce, the entire thing. I'd much rather have the Dolphins sort of still appearing to be together, but things aren't going their way, as opposed to toxic. This whole thing could come crashing down in a spectacular way almost halfway through year one of a guy you just invested in as your head coach. I prefer the Dolphins situation to the Raiders situation.
Okay, we've been at it for a while. I'm gonna close with this. I love this. This makes me feel good, and you'll like this too. There you go. How do you not like this, Ken? The redheaded dude is my favorite partner for Poops.
Who's that?
That's you, except he's not redheaded technically.
Yeah, I'm
assuming you meant Ken.
Yeah, it's more like a brownish blonde, dirty blonde type of thing. But thank you. Appreciate that, dog. Appreciate that.
And on that note, nope, hold on. We got one more we got to take care of here. We take care of the business. We take care of the people who take care of us. Simon, thank you very much. Any early predictions on next week's game at Buffalo? Why am I channeling Mr. T over here? Pain. Dude, I keep picking the Dolphins, and I keep looking like an idiot, and then I can hear the background going, that's because you are. Yeah, no, I have a hard time seeing how the Dolphins win that game. I really do.
Yeah, my prediction is tequila.
Okay.
Tequila.
Well, I'm going to be in working mode, so I can't do that. Plus, I'm not.
That's true. For most of you, what I would recommend is a 90% chance of tequila.
Okay, now we know it's time to wrap it up. On that note, thanks again, everyone who joined us. Please check out my buddy Ken LaVicka over here on ESPN Radio. When are you on again, Ken?
Talk to you Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and then potentially Thursday. But again, check your local ESPN Radio affiliate. Okay, and for me, please check out the website, Miami Dolphins on SI.com.
Appreciate everyone who joined in. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and try to have as enjoyable the rest of your Sunday as possible on this Dolphin loss day. Again, Final
Hug
Sports
your family.
7.
Yeah.
All righty. Thanks, everyone.